All right, everyone. Good morning to everyone. Some of you may be watching this in the afternoon, but what's up to you? Welcome to another edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I give commentary and reviews on all things wrestling. And before I get started, I want to thank everybody that's been watching. And for those of you who are new, thank you so much because we have reached 80. So I really appreciate that. Today, here comes the money. Today is the birthday of Shane O'Mac. And I gotta say, who remembers back in the ministry and the corporation days when Shane was rocking? He didn't have a black outfit like this, but he was rocking the black shirt in the shades during his ministry days with the Undertaker and, of course, the corporation, or the corporate ministry, should I say. But tonight, or should I say today, we're going to do a special review on my top several picks of my favorite Shane McMahon matches. Starting at number 7, let's start with 7 of my favorites. At number 7, we have Shane McMahon when he teamed up with the A-lister, the Hollywood star, the awesome one, The Miz, at the Royal Rumble in 2019 to defeat The Bar for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Was it the SmackDown Championships or the World Tag? Either way, they were the champions. And we got to see some great highlights from Shane McMahon as always, including the Shooting Star Press. Of course, unfortunately, the alliance with Shane and Miz wouldn't last long, as it was actually Shane McMahon who would become the traitor. But the tag team match in itself was awesome. At number 6, we have Shane McMahon along with his father against Stone Cold Steve Austin in a handicapped ladder match at the Royal Rumble. Now, at the Royal Rumble, no, I'm sorry. It was at the King of the Ring. My bad. Bloopers there. Okay. King of the Ring, 1999. This was a match that was about the power. And whoever won the match would contain all the WWF's power at the time. And Stone Cold was the boss and the commanding CEO at the time. And did you guys see how he ran Raw that night? What about the time he had that woman answer the phone? Let me see if I can do this. Hello? Who the heck? No, I'm sorry. This is how he did it. Who the heck is this? What the heck do you want? You guys are good times. Attitude Era, good times. But the handicap match between Shane McMahon and his son, his father, Mr. McMahon, facing off against Stone Cold in a handicap ladder match was great. There was a lot of crooked action, which we all knew was conspiracy, like Sami Zayn would say, but it was conspiracy to help the McMahons win the ladder match. And of course they would win, but Stone Cold made sure he had himself insured in case of crooked actions. But I enjoyed the match. More so because I actually enjoyed what Stone Cold was doing. At number 5, we have Shane McMahon versus the phenomenal one, AJ Styles, who kicked Waller's butt recently. Thank you, AJ, and LA Knight is back. But let's stay focused on the task at hand because we have Shane McMahon and AJ Styles. They put on an amazing match at WrestleMania 33. It was awesome, and it was nothing short of phenomenal. It was no holds barred, so we got to see a flying elbow from the apron onto from the ring post all the way down to the announce table successfully. We also got to see some coast to coast moves. However, even though Shane McMahon was unsuccessful at winning that match, it was still a great match, and both men showed great respect for each other the next Tuesday on an episode of SmackDown, back when SmackDown was on Tuesday nights. Moving forward to number 4, Shane McMahon versus Kane at Survivor Series 2003. Now, I know what you're thinking. Shane lost that one also. But let's be honest, that was still a great effort by Shane. One of the highlights that I really appreciate, two highlights that I appreciate from that match on Shane's part, was Shane delivering his signature elbow onto Kane through the announce table. But that wasn't enough to keep Kane down. He even rammed the back of an SUV onto Shane McMahon, onto Kane, sending Kane pushed into the security booth. And if that wasn't enough of a highlight, we saw Shane McMahon deliver a coast to coast, not in the ring, but from the top of an ambulance. Isn't that crazy? So that was one of the biggest highlights to deliver that move. That was one of my favorite moments of that match. And even though he lost the ambulance match, Shane put on an amazing performance that night. And speaking of which, we have number 3. Kane's brother, The Undertaker, faces off against Shane at WrestleMania 32 in Dallas, Texas, inside Hell in a Cell. And this is ironic because this year, WrestleMania is going to have the most stupendous event. That's funny. You guys, for those of you who watched Barney for 5 minutes as a kid, I watched him for a little bit as a kid and then just moved on to stuff like Arthur and stuff. But for those of us who watched Barney for 5 minutes, we remember when Barney used to jump in circles saying, "Stupendous!" But either way, God bless Barney. Either way, it is a stupendous event that will take place 2 nights this year in Dallas, Texas. Ironically, this match took place in Dallas, Texas at WrestleMania 32 inside Hell in a Cell, WrestleMania 2016. It was nothing short of amazing. And just when we thought we've seen it all from Shane McMahon, he attempts something that is unthought of. For attempting, yes, we saw the coast to coast. Yes, we saw the best performance of Shane McMahon. But one of the things that dropped our jaws was when Shane McMahon attempted a flying elbow from the top of the cell. I thought I've seen it all, but I haven't. Unfortunately for Shane, he missed, and of course, The Undertaker won. And the crazy part about it is, it was a mixed reaction because while everyone loved The Undertaker, and of course they were in Texas, Undertaker's a Texas guy. At the same time, a lot of people were rooting for Shane McMahon because the stipulation goes that if Shane won, the Authority would be out of power. However, for Shane to win, that means The Undertaker would have to have his last match. So while a lot of fans were for Shane, it's a big crowd. So you know there were a lot of fans for the Texas man, one of my all-time favorites, The Undertaker. The Undertaker was able to perform the next year and the year after next because of his victory. But the fact that we were able to see Shane deliver such an amazing dive off the top rope was amazing. Unfortunately, he only did it twice against The Undertaker and Kevin Owens, and both times they were unsuccessful, which means both times it cost Shane the match. So no more diving over the top unless you tie somebody on the announce table. Then I would love to see a dive. But Shane is getting a little bit gray, so I don't know if he can still jump from that high anymore. Moving on to number 2. Shane McMahon versus his father, Mr. McMahon, at WrestleMania 17, also in Texas, except Houston, Texas. It was a match that saw Shane. It was right after Shane bought WCW, and Mr. McMahon, no, Shane took WCW, and Shane thought he bought Mr. McMahon thought he had WCW until Shane bought it. And that was the last episode of WCW Nitro. But with that and Mr. McMahon's affair with Trish Stratus, there was a lot leading to this match. But this match was pretty entertaining to watch. And let's not forget that there were a lot of great factors in the match also, including the quote cat fight between Trish Stratus and Stephanie McMahon on the outside. But one of the craziest moments was where and it's amazing how Paul Heyman knows who Benny Hinn is. But this is your day, pun intended, because that's the name of Benny Hinn's show. She's just kidding. But either way, because Benny Hinn got them hands that when he touched people, they just fall out quick. But either way, apparently Benny Hinn was doing a crusade in Houston, Texas, to Paul Heyman's humorous allusion, because during the match, Linda McMahon, who was supposed to be paralyzed, immediately stepped up after Mr. McMahon called her the chicken biscuit twice and disrespected her continuously, having an affair in front of Linda. Linda knew everything that was going on, and Linda made him pay because Linda delivered an Electra Lopez-like kick downstairs, which helped Shane McMahon set Mr. McMahon up for the coast to coast, not to mention a little bit of help from Mick Foley, the special guest ref. But Shane McMahon won that match. Now let's call some matches that Shane actually won. This match right here is my number one match. And this is Shane McMahon versus The Big Show at Backlash 2001. Obviously, we all know the reason why that match is number one. Because of the ending. Shane McMahon, I know the Hell in a Cell dive was about 20 feet down, but this had to be every bit of 20, 30, 50 feet in the air. I don't know how high it was, but Shane was high up in the rafters, and he flew down from just 50 feet in the air. The last time Shane McMahon had that type of a fall around that time was when he fell at SummerSlam and lost to, what's the man's name with the kendo sticks? Darn it! Come on. Hold on. It was Steve Blackman. I'm sorry. Steve Blackman versus Shane at SummerSlam when Shane went flying. But the reason the match at Backlash is number one, because it was a match between Shane McMahon versus The Big Show, Last Man Standing, in Chicago at Backlash 2001. And after Mr. McMahon and Shane McMahon came The Big Show versus McMahon. And yes, he had help from Tess. But the fact that Shane McMahon was able to do that type of dive over the top, all the way up the top of the entrance ramp, down to the floor, is amazing. I was just lost at words. We all were lost at words when Shane did that. That was amazing. And, of course, because of that, Shane McMahon won, but Tess had to hold him up to beat The Big Show, and not to mention he took a fall so far from the sky, he was able to reach Christ for a high five. But that's my favorite 7 matches of Shane McMahon. What was your favorite match? What are your favorite Shane McMahon matches, Shane McMahon moments? Let me know in the comment section below. This is the Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody. And that's all the time I got for you today. And I will be back another time with another review on all things wrestling. Happy birthday to the Shane McMahon.